right, folks, we're getting close. Or you on the Zoom screen, for all those people who are really like Zoom addicts, and this is like your favorite time of the day to be on a 2-hour Zoom. You're missing out. There's a full crowd here at Ag and Open Space. I think we're starting to see kind of the inertia move back to in person. So I welcome you guys in for future events. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the introductions. We're going to do about 20 minutes of introductions before we get into 2 excellent presentations we have on the agenda today. So with that in mind, let's be a little bit more pithy than usual, and I'll kind of jump from folks who are on Zoom to the room, so we can kind of have a little mix of presentations. So hopefully people don't get too confused at who's talking and what they're talking about. So with that, let's go to Steve Swain as one of our first folks to give us a download of what they're up to.
Hey, you guys, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, thanks.
Okay, great. Collecting my thoughts here. I'm struggling with trying to identify what is causing these light green patches on coast live oaks. I've looked at them myself, and so I think it might be a powdery mildew, but I have mite damage, or what looks like mites associated with it. So I'm a little confused. And if anybody has any suggestions about what that might be, or if they think they know, I'm all ears. And in the interest of keeping things pithy, I said at the last meeting I was at most of the things I'm concerned about, and that's all. Thanks.
All right, Steve, you didn't do a good job of doing our normal routine of who you are and where you work.
Right. Okay. So let's see.
I like the pithiness though.
Right. So Stephen Swain, environmental horticulture advisor for Marin and Sonoma counties. I work for UC Cooperative Extension, mostly on plant pathology issues, but since that bleeds over into all kinds of other areas like general landscaping, fire, those kinds of things, yeah, it's tough to draw lines. So that's pretty much what I do. And yeah, enough said.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. And coming into the room, Patty, do you want to give us a quick update?
Sure. I'm Patty Urin. I'm with the Sonoma RCD. I'm a new community engagement specialist working in the Forestry division. Pithier.
No, that's great. Whatever you want to do, we're good.
I come from 21 years in with the Bureau of Reclamation, working in DC and in the Southwest. And Sonoma County is my home, and I just moved back last year, and I'm happy to be here.
Very nice. Thank you very much. All right. So Molly Curley O'Brien.
Good morning. Is it still good morning? Good morning, everybody.
Yeah.
My name is Molly Curley O'Brien. I'm with WRA. I'm happy to be here today. I am looking forward to the discussion on the agenda as it informs the Sonoma Wildfire Resilience Program that we're kicking off, that a big team of consultants, myself included, are starting in the next couple of weeks. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Molly. All right, back to the room. Tamara?
It looks like the owls aren't working. That's okay.
Yeah, if you keep talking, maybe they'll shoot over to you.
Isn't, but that's okay.
All right.
We'll figure it out. I'm Tamara Costa. I work with Regenerative Forest Solutions. I'm also a forest landowner in Western Sonoma County at Green Valley Farm and Mill, and excited to be here today. Any update? You just want updates?
Yeah, if you could do an update, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, the latest update is we just hosted our session 2 stakeholder engagement session for Regenerative Forest Solutions Woody Feedstock Pilot Project. We're garnering feedback from the public and public comment period is open via our survey to utilize and recover wood waste from the forest. So we're excited to share that and hope to get help with getting the word out on our survey, if you all can. Maybe put that in the notes.
Fantastic, good. And together, Tamara and a few others on this call participated in the biomass. What what was it?
The symposium.
Yeah, it was the symposium up at Hopland, which was really interesting as well. Really focused on that key question about what do we do with the biomass? Is there a way to convert it to energy, to products, to a lot of different things? A lot of good specialists were there. And so coming back to the screen, let's go to Brooke Edwards, please.
Good morning, everyone. Brooke Edwards, Sonoma County Regional Parks. I'm a park program supervisor, focus on forest management, fuels reduction, prescribed fire, all that good stuff. And so we're moving into our spring, summer season for prescribed fire. We are looking at doing about 130 acres of grassland burn at our Tole Ranch Regional Park. That would be sometime mid to late June. So we're working on prepping that. CAL FIRE is the lead on that one. They will be the burn boss. They will have the crews there. And then regional park staff will tie in with them. And we will burn off about 130 acres. And we're doing that all in co-management with Federated Indians of Great and Rancheria. So if you all remember last year, we did about 80 acres of grassland. This year we're doing about 130, and then hopefully every spring, we will be doing, continue to do that grassland burn. Eric, did you have a question about that one? No.
No, I was just clapping.
Oh, that was a clap. That was good. Okay. And then Shiloh, we're trying to ramp up some burns there as well this spring. Well, actually in the summer, it looks like the dates are probably early July. Those would be a mix of grassland, shrub, and woodland burns. Smaller ones, these are like, 10 to 13 acres there. And then Monoreal Redwoods, we've been working on that property, doing some fuels reduction there. CAL FIRE is planning to burn off some areas near the ridgetop to enforce the shaded fuel break there. And so hopefully we'll be doing, 5 to 10 acres this spring. And then in fall, we're planning to do a larger push of about 30 acres of prescribed fire up there. And then also Regional Parks is tying in with Santa Rosa JC Shown Farm and their wildfire resilience program. If everyone remembers, they had an internship program there that was funded through PG&E settlement funds. And that ran for 2 years. It was very successful. We've hired a lot of folks that have come out of that program, as well as other agencies and contractors and stuff like that. So to be able to hire on skilled, workers that are comfortable with chainsaws and prescribed fire is really a big plus for us and others, because we can really hit the ground running and increase the pace and scale of fuels reduction that we can do on our parks. So that program is on pause right now. The funds have run out from PG&E. However, we're working with the JC and other potential funders to refund that program and get that back up and running. And so things are looking positive, but we have to put all the pieces back together. So if anyone knows of any other funding available for workforce development type funds, please let me know. Send me an email, throw something in the chat. But we definitely want to get that back up and running. That's all I got right now.
That's awesome. Thanks, Brooke. Appreciate that update. Let's go with Connor, please.
All right. Morning, everybody. My name is Connor DeVane, and he, him pronouns. I'm with North Bay Jobs and Justice as one of 2 resilience and just transition coordinators there. And you'll be hearing more from me later, so I think I'll keep it that pithy.
All right, that is pithy. I love that. All right, thank you. Robert Aguero.
Morning, everyone. Robert Aguero. I'm Senior Environmental Specialist and Forester over at Permit Sonoma. I think the biggest thing that I've been working on, the implementation of the new tree ordinances for the county. Those were adopted last month, and they go into effect June 1st when the moratorium on tree removal ends. So we're working on all the implementation material, guidance, coordinating with all the impacted county agencies and other stakeholders. So stay tuned on that one.
All right, thank you. Josh, please.
Hey everyone, my name is Josh Cox. I lead Resilience Works, and like Connor, I'll be presenting later. So I look forward to telling you guys about what we do.
Great, thank you. And Dee, you're next. Oh, you just remuted yourself. Dee, you just remuted yourself by accident.
There we go.
Yeah. there we go.
I'm Dee Swanheiser, and I'm representing Taking Action for Living Systems. I've been involved with this group since its inception, working with Fred Ufrat. We are the co-founders. But Taking Action for Living Systems is the update I want to provide. And we are working with 4 counties to increase the pace and scale of our collective work. We're concentrating on getting private capital investments to match the public funding we have been enjoying since 2017, but public funding won't be available forever. Yet our work is working on our forever problem, climate change. We also work on a structure of how these boundaries can be dissolved and that the collective work can continue without lines to consider that are lines on a piece of paper. That's what I'm doing. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dee. Going to you, Rose.
I'm Rose. I work at the Goldbridge RCD in the Forestry Department, and biggest upcoming event right now is our June 9th workshop for forest land owners in the Lower Russian River area. I'm excited about that. We have some great speakers, including Tamara and Kim and Adriana, who are all here with us.
All right, thank you. Let me see. It looks like Eric, you're next.
Hello all, Eric Schoohs from Sonoma Ecology Center. I'm a land management planner, project manager, which generally means I get my fingers into anything and everything I can. I love collaborating with people. So right now, we'll tell you a little bit more about Tending the Land guide that we've been creating over the last year, and looking to the future, looking on opportunities to use that content so that we can do workforce development, outreach, workshops. So looking for more collaboration. So much like, we had Brooke speaking to any way or any people that are looking and finding funding, I'm happy to jump on that boat as well. So keep us looped in if you find some.
All right, good, thanks. Caitlin.
Hi, everybody. Caitlin Cornwall, Sonoma Ecology, also going to be speaking later with Eric. I'll just mention a couple of the projects that we have going on. We're working with Lovely Center in Sonoma Valley on a workforce development training program with the JC, and helping with North Bay Job of Justice workforce training, which has been awesome. We continue in a sort of long-term way to try to figure out how to bring good land stewardship to the 750 acres of open space around the Sonoma Developmental Center, which is kind of the biggest for grabs piece of property in Sonoma Valley. And then lastly, I'll mention that we just have sort of ongoing work with various landowner groups in Sonoma Valley doing roadside treatment and planning, and we're working with Greenbelt Alliance in the Springs to do some wildfire resilience planning for the hills that are above the Springs neighborhoods to the east in the Maya Promise.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. And let's keeping the Sonoma Ecology Center alive. Let's go to you, Richard.
Hi all, I'm here mostly just to glare over the shoulder of my colleagues here. I wanted to see the Tending the Land presentation today.
Fantastic, thanks. Chris Carlson from Sonoma Land Trust.
Hey there. I'm a program manager, primarily working in the Sonoma Valley, but also leading our Living with Fire strategy. Like Brooke mentioned, getting ready for spring and summer burn season. We're going to do some thatch burning at our Pitkin Marsh property off Highway 116. Looking towards our 3rd year of yellow star thistle burn up in Night Valley, and then some grassland burning at vernal pools off Bennett Valley Road, and also just working hard on finishing up cultural biological compliance before building some bigger burn units on the coast. Night Valley, trying to lead with fire and rely less on interior unit prep, thinning sort of stuff.
All right, thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. Lynn Garrick?
So Lynn Garrick up in the Upper Markwest watershed. I'm a landowner here and chair of the Upper Markwest Fire Safe Council. We just did a wonderful grazing workshop that we held at Pepperwood with Stephanie Larson and RCD and was very, very well received. We also hosted one day of the power tool training that was done by collaboration, I think, of Sonoma Ecology Center, Fire Safe Sonoma, and Jobs for Justice. So it was delightful to have a large group of people up here doing weed whacking and tool training and chainsaw training. And the biggest thing going on up here is that next week we actually start the shaded fuel break on Calistoga Road. So we have our landowner permissions, we've got our porta potty ready to put in place, and we will start cutting trees and removing brush next Monday. That's with Conservation Corps North Bay and Ecological Solutions.
Fantastic. Congratulations. Thanks, Lynn. On that note, another congratulations to that project. They got funded by the Vegetation Management Grant Program. I notified Conservation Corps last night that they'll be fully funded for that Calistoga shaded fuel break. I love doing that. I don't get the chance to do that on the first day. So, and then next we have Amanda Benton.
Hi, everyone. Amanda Benton with Permit Sonoma. I'm the Outreach and Education Coordinator, or Outreach and Community Engagement. Like to keep my finger on the pulse of what folks are doing in the biosphere and love it all. Thanks.
Nice. Thank you, Amanda. Esther, nice to see you again. Esther Mandino.
Yep, sorry. Yeah,
No
sorry,
worries.
had to find the mute button. My name's Esther Mandino. I am just here to catch up on everybody's activities. Thank
It
you.
looks like a good day for that. We have a lot of good participants today. Ray Krause.
Hi, Ray Krause, Upper Markwest Watershed, and Lynn has covered our good successes. Thank you, Lynn.
All right, thanks, Ray. And Tori Norville.
Hi, Tori Norville with UC Cooperative Extensions. I'm mostly just gearing up for the field season to tackle some research and then helping my colleagues in the Sierras put on trade school, which we did in Hopland earlier this month. And we're doing a second one in Placerville. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us, Tori. And Adriana.
Adriana Stagnero, Forestry Project Manager with Goldridge RCD. And the RCD is busy with a lot of forest management planning. We have funds for landowners to implement forestry projects on their properties through the North Bay Forest Improvement Program and EQIP. We work with NRCS on getting people signed up for EQIP. Been working on a number of workshops with Kim and Rose and other public engagement and education opportunities this year. I'll be just talking to several of you guys about ways to engage with that. And also working with our Fire Safe Council, Fire Safe Sonoma on defensible space support for West County. So.
All right. Well, I'm excited to report out because this week we're taking to the board, or next week actually, 9 projects that our evaluation committee recommended for funding. Some is at full funding and some is partial funding. And then 11 projects were not accepted for approval for funding. So overall, I think it's a good group of projects. That's all under what we call track 1, which is through the traditional request for proposal. That's something we've been doing since 2021 and has so far funded 65 different projects around the county. This year we had $1 million to be able to distribute under the typical request for proposal. But now we have the luxury of being able to follow a track 2 where through the series of workshops that we're coordinating with Goldridge RCD and many other partners, we're able to develop projects and work with communities to flesh out better details and really be able to tee up projects that will be much more successful, not only through the vegetation management grant program, but other projects or grants that might be applicable, be it CAL FIRE, U.S. Forest Service. We really want to be able to work with communities to be able to develop projects that are much better technically, as well as more representative as far as landowners, and specifically in high priority areas that are under wildfire threat. But the other part I'm really excited about is I can officially say we, because for the longest time since 2021, it was that one-man show that had to do a lot of the grunt work, and now I have someone to pass it off. I'd like you to meet Samantha DeLucci. She's our new administrative assistant that started yesterday. So I'm really throwing her at the wolves and brought her to the Sonoma County Forest Conservation Working Group. So Samantha, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I came from a lobbying background, not to scare you all, that was my first job. After graduating, transitioned into working in government affairs for the California Academy of Sciences, grew their government affairs practice, secured lots of new grant opportunities for them, had increased revenues of over 15 million during my time there, and now I just transitioned to this role. So really excited to be here. Background is obviously government affairs, but really excited to be on the inside now and see how this all works.
Nice.
So exciting.
Good. She arrived on Tuesday, was her first day, so Thursday she's still feeding from the fire hose right now. So it's a lot to take on, as you can imagine, and hopefully we'll keep her for at least a week or two. So with that, I'd like to move to our presentations. Let me throw up the agenda so everybody knows what we'll be talking about today. And can you all see that pretty well? And so we've done our updates, 25 minutes, that's not bad, right? We're trying to keep it nice and short so we can keep the interest and the energy going on these events and really focus our attention to the variety of different excellent presentations that we will be hearing during the course of each meeting that we have. As most of you know, this is a monthly meeting. We want to have your full attention and be able to present engaging thematic areas that you guys would be interested in hearing about. So today we're excited to hear from Eric Schoohs and Caitlin Cornwall from Sonoma Ecology Center to present the Tending the Land for Fire Resilience in Sonoma County. So with that, I'll let you take it away. Do you want me to go to a certain website, or just Eric, or share? Someone wants to share their screen?
Eric is going to share a screen. You can go ahead, Eric, and share the screen. And then the way we're going to do this is I'm going to talk a little bit from the slides, and then Eric is going to tootle around the website, and then we'll come back for a couple slides. So this is a pretty picture. You can go to the next slide. So this is an online guide called Tending the Land for Fire Resilience in Sonoma County. And we're doing a soft launch this month. So now you'll have the link. It's tendingtheland.org, and right now you have to put the word home at the end of the link to get the whole site, because tendingland.org just goes to a static landing page for just a little bit more. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about the guiding principles behind this online guide. Go ahead, Eric. Yeah. So, what kind of space does this resource occupy? I would like actually feedback on all of this, everything you see today, including this graphic. This is an attempt to try to, there's different spaces that people are trying to think about when they think about fire resilience and healthy land. And we have all talked a lot about the spectrum from home hardening to defensible space to the land beyond. And so the Tending the Land guide is for beyond defensible space. We've also worked a lot with a bunch of other organizations on the Resilient Landscapes website, which is a similarly Sonoma County targeted website for defensible space. And they have overlapping goals. And so when we're talking about beyond defensible space, we're not really talking about structures or human safety. We're talking about the land itself. Next. Just another little plug for Resilient Landscapes. It's a very pretty website. People are really enjoying it. And we talk about it at workshops, just like Attending the Land. Go ahead.
If I could interject here, one of the things that we agreed, this was funded by a vegetation management grant program. But we thought about originally having a paper publication. That was the original approach that we were thinking. And then as we got into it and saw how this is going to continue to improve and we will add more and more information, we thought the website would be much more agile. And kudos to Sonoma Ecology Center and the team to really kind of create this website versus having a stagnant or static manual that you would try to carry around in your truck. But that was the original intent. Moving to the Resilient Landscapes Coalition as the host of the website, or maybe it's an independent website.
It's basically the Ecology Center that keeps it up.
Right, okay. So as we go through this is kind of the idea that we're moving into a realm where the website will be where we want to direct people towards.
It's so much better.
Yeah, as Kim was saying, just the agile, small little fixes. We don't have to put out a whole new edition. So it's already kind of bearing fruit, to be honest, in the back end quite a bit in the last few weeks.
Yeah. Okay, next slide. We skip this one. I think we've hammered on that. This is meant to be a one-stop shop, helpful information resource for all kinds of users, including professionals. We have a lot of young professionals. We have a lot of professionals who are wanting or should want to kind of integrate the two ends of the spectrum. There's ecological sophistication that we want practitioners to know about. And then there's also, the straight up fire orientation, and all the language of this website really is trying to bring all those perspectives together into one sort of holistic approach to land stewardship. So we're not really talking much about vegetation management. We're not using the word control. Pretty much throughout here, we're talking about stewardship. Next slide.
I just want to add real quick. So it's a meeting ground, not only of people with different interests and goals, but also a different experience. So there are people who are higher level who have been doing this work, many people in this room, in fact. This raises the kind of knowledge of people who are just getting into the sphere. And so those two parts can communicate a little bit easier, I hope.
One of the principles we hammer on a lot throughout the website is the cycle of adaptive management. The website does not actually use that term at all because it's pretty wonky, but this graphic shows up throughout the website. You learn, you plan, you learn from what you did, you replan, you do some more, and it never ends. And so on every page of the website, there's a green circle that shows up to sort of orient you to where you are in this cycle of land stewardship. And the ongoingness, the foreverness can be overwhelming and daunting. And so there's sprinkled throughout little sort of pep talk, little call out boxes to highlight the upsides of that ongoing forever relationship with the land, which is so satisfying that we have all experienced. Go ahead. Another main emphasis throughout is always tying the detailed technical information about the practices of land stewardship with your goals, your intended outcomes, and really try to use a lot of different tricks to continually get people to think about this. You need to know what you're after, or you probably won't get it. And so we try to unpack these different goals for people. Why would you maybe want to pursue, 4 of these or 7 of these, and how you combine them? So each of the practices uses these icons at the top of the page with a link back to the page that talks about goals. And we would love to hear from you about whether you think that's working or if you have any better ideas for doing that. Go ahead. Okay, take it away, Eric.
All right. Sorry, I can't see around my pictures here. Great. So here we have the landing page. If you type in /home.
We're not seeing it yet.
Yeah, you'll have to close out and then
I'll do a new
reshare.
here.
Yeah.
Great.
And
how's
just
that?
in case anybody didn't read the invitation email to this meeting, we're doing a soft launch. You guys are kind of expert users. You can get into the mindsets of more people who all want to be using this. So just please tell us what you see that we could do better on. And particularly we want, I would say, well, we'll come back to this at the end, but you'll see, we have some good photos. We want more and better photos that kind of demonstrate the effect of good land stewardship. And we're also really searching for, well, I'll come back to that at the end. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, one thing to add to that is, formatting is still being worked out, but it's really about content. We've worked with a lot of you to get much of this content, but as we were kind of alluding to earlier, there's just a constant effort to keep things up to date, and it takes time. So the emphasis here is this should be accessible to all people and give us a baseline of knowledge. So on the landing page here, kind of one of the things we want is on the left hand, the actual way that you navigate the site is very simple. It breaks down into those adaptive management styles, or I guess portions we were talking about with the learn, plan, do, and it opens up very smoothly. On the page, if you send anyone here or if someone's using it for the first time, it's pretty self-explanatory, basically touching on what Caitlin just walked through. Is like, what are we doing here? It links to all the pages and gives reference, who it's for, case studies, and then just talks a lot about the why, land acknowledgements. So without further ado, let's dive in. Under the learn, you can learn about the goals and things that Caitlin was just speaking to, ecological principles, which is just kind of base knowledge about how land operates. So we're starting in this kind of entry level understanding of things, and then diving in after you can learn about Indigenous land gardening. We worked with Greg Saris, a local author, as well as Clint McKay helped us with quite a bit through Christina Rizga. And one of the main efforts to simplify things as well comes down to, how do we define the land? If you want to get to the minutia, there's like 50 different land types. We tried to simplify it down to basically grasslands, shrublands, forests, and then wetland/riparian, which is obviously protected and has a lot more going for it when it comes to permitting and environmental compliance. So yeah, I won't dive too much deeper into that. We have a couple of case studies here. Monica Del Martini was gracious enough to help us talk a little bit about Saddle Mountain and the work they've been doing there, as well as Pepperwood with Devin and Michael over there. If any of you have great case studies and you want to work with us, it's a pretty straightforward process. We would love to have them, because ultimately it comes down to what helps people decide what's most helpful for them is reading about other people's stories. So I just want to put that plug in there. We would love to work with you. Moving forward, the more important tool, I would say, or maybe the more helpful tool is, of course, learning, but now you have this knowledge, what do you do? So we tried to work this into kind of a linear story. So defining your goals, what do you have on your property and what are you trying to do, or the place where you're working, designing the plan. And then the trickier ones that we really appreciate Robert coming in and assisting with is permitting, right? So he helped us make, Robert Aguero, just to give him a call out. He helped us make these pretty simple little flow charts, which I think are incredibly helpful for especially people who aren't used to this sector. There's little nuggets like this throughout the website that hopefully will kind of take away some of the fear and give more understanding, but lots to dive into here. A lot of local links, so you can go throughout the website and we make sure that you can get to places just kind of like Wikipedia, where you click on a link and you're still on Wikipedia, but you're in new information, as well as external resources, especially from the people that we love working with in the county, like the RCDs, like, Permit Sonoma, CAL FIRE, all the above, Occidental Arts and Ecology Center, the full spectrum. And the one thing that's pretty hard, but I thought was important that we add, is a little page about how much it might cost to do the work. Obviously, that's pretty broad spectrum, but I think people have no concept. So even putting in a little representation of like $2,000 to $6,000 per acre could be something to look at, I think, is what lay people especially are looking for, hopefully. All right, and this is the practical stuff that personally find most interesting. I was, coming from implementation, most excited to work on these. And I'll just dive into one or two of the practices, but we have upwards of 20, I believe. And we kind of separate them into different sectors, but we'll dive down into thinning here under the woodlands and forest practice first. So at the top, you can see thinning it's great. There's so many benefits that come from it, full spectrum. And again, as Kellen said, anyone who wants to can click and figure out what these actually mean. All of these are generalized. They have a format where you come in, it tells you what you're learning about. You're in the do section. So this is the practical feet on the ground, boots on the ground, ready to go. And then we try to just define it, maybe share a picture. This is from the, I can't remember the fire right now, but pretty well known. And you can, what was it? Bootleg fire. Yeah. Which is in the Pacific Northwest, but is a really great indicator of what you can do if you're carrying in.
I see we're missing a caption, so I'm gonna take a little note on that.
Yeah, some caption. Yeah, exactly. We've got great. Thank you for taking that. So yeah, that's been a lot of the work lately. Anyways, thinning is obviously a pretty tough one. I would love if people would read through this a bit more. We try to define it in multiple ways and different kind of goal sets. So you can speak to that here. Again, our standardized approach is define it, talk about benefits. You can see we have some notes here we still need to work through, link different studies and kind of what might happen throughout, background in this case talking about Indigenous practices and how they work through it. Then
I will say this is one of the, I'll just say this is one of the longer and more complex of the practices, but it's also kind of the heart of a lot of people's vegetation management. So that's why.
Hey, Eric, can I just emphasize one thing?
Yep.
One of the things that we were confronting when we considered this particular proposal to do this work was that there are various environmental organizations that don't agree with any kind of vegetation management. And that is the evidence they bring to the table is largely focused on practices that are happening outside of Sonoma County. So one of the things we really wanted to emphasize in this particular document or this process is that this is very Sonoma County centric. We have conditions that are very unique. We have threats that are very relevant. And we wanted to make something that was very focused on our habitat and not be influenced by other organizations who are not working with us. This is a product consisting of many institutions and organizations and agencies that work here. And we really wanted to emphasize this product is for this county. So we might want to consider that Oregon photo, even though it's great and showing it. Maybe that's the only situation where you have that outside of the county.
It's a very clear photo, but
I totally appreciate that.
We do want more photos and at the end, we'll say the things that we know we especially need. But yes.
That sounds good. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, 95% of the photos, at least I would say, are from Sonoma County. And I do appreciate you pointing that out. I'm hoping that it'll go the other way, right? We create this great product and it influences externally. So,
right.
So, one more thing or the next thing here is just, is this for me? When and where you might use this, giving like really basic concepts and then trying to create visualizations for people because there aren't any hard, fast rules. If you talk to any RPFs, et cetera, it's a lot of, it depends. And so we're just trying our best to give a little bit more context to why it depends so people can come to the table with more knowledge. And we try to break that down into these sections as well. Key points.
And the key points for proceeding is like, the mini textbook, like what you really hope to God people understand the basic principles of before they go start doing things. So that's what that section's about. So this, like that graphic, you can't really, it's a little bit small in the room, but that's showing the effects of crowding on tree growth.
Right.
Oh, this one up here, yeah.
Yeah, people, when people are super too attached to every single tree, that's what they don't understand.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Great. The other thing is visuals. This is one we'll ask for sure, is like tree spacing in different ecosystems, right? So quite a few oak woodland pictures, especially because we were working with Pepperwood, they're a partner on this. So they were nice enough to share a lot. This is from Saddle Mountain on the left, Pepperwood on the right. But more redwoods, other ecosystems that we see regularly, an oak savanna instead of just kind of, these are more woodlands, mixed hardwood forests. We would love all those pictures. I know this seems like they're really accessible and they're there, but then you start making the website and you realize, oh, it is a lot harder to find on a whim than you think. Yeah, I'll take a question real quick. Ray, what's up?
Any discussion of post-fire landscapes? Acres of
Yes.
standing dead fir or dead brush, and what's growing up is, I mean, we have fuel under fuel in a lot of these areas.
We have a whole a page in the practices section that is about post-fire land care.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's here. So yeah, there's a post-fire page. It references a couple of different documents. We outsourced that to other local resources.
Yeah, there's that page is mostly a guide that CNPS produced after the 2017 fires, and also one that the Ecology Center produced. And there's also a link to the page of resources that Sonoma RCD created that is still really quite relevant. Eric, thank you, great.
Yeah, I just wanted to show it real quick. So yeah, we went to these already wonderful resources. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel. So there's that, but also the practices themselves will reference dead standing trees, etc., because that is so relevant to the county. Okay, where were we?
Back to thinning.
Great. So yeah, this one's pretty in depth, of course, because thinning is a big deal. We don't want people cutting down large mature trees and over thinning, but also, not touching it at all is an issue. So it's trying to give people the background as to how they might proceed. Caitlin wrote up this nice little kind of step-by-step approach. We're trying not to give specific protocols on how to do it, exactly like the distances, etc., because it's different between each forest, but here's a general approach.
And then each practice has a variations, a little section at the end, because it varies depending.
Yep. Pretty straightforward, but PPE and then maintenance at the end. We did a little what to do if you have resprouts, which is obviously a big issue habitually, especially with our native trees like California bays, and a few others. But I want to step back just for a second and point out one of the things that I'm super excited about is, yes, we're doing the technical side and caring about fire safety, but we also tried to add in more information that's relevant to the full ecological health. And one of them I'm excited about is we worked with Marin County Parks. They do nesting bird surveys habitually to create a page for amateur surveys. They don't count for like CEQA or anything like that, but just to get more in tune with your local flora and fauna and how they interact. So I highly recommend checking out the nesting bird surveys practice as well. All right, what was the next one, Caitlin? We said we were gonna
managing woody material.
Yes. Okay, I think that page needs to be rerouted. Great, so a big one.
Start at the top.
A big one is just, yes, you want to do the work. We've seen how overgrown a lot of the forests are, especially with Doug fir encroachment. This page is all about options that you might take to deal with it. Of course, there's a lot of chipping going on, chipper programs, but we wanted to give the full spectrum of what you might cover.
And I'll say this page, can you go up to the top of this page for a sec? This page has many, many links to it from other pages on the website, because like in the planning section, we're hammering on like, don't start before you know what you're gonna do with all that wood. And so this is like a landing page that then leads to several other practice pages, because there's so many ways you could go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, each and every one of these, and we're still hammering out exactly what the aesthetic looks like, but you can link into all of these. different practices, including beneficial fire, which pretty excited about just sharing information. I think a lot of people understand that as very important to the landscape, living with fire. A lot of you were at the conference last year. So it's understanding that relationship and how we might move towards being able to put fire on the land and have it in a space where it's ready for that. Great.
So Eric, you might want to add here that, changing the composition of the forest from standing to surface is problematic in the density that we're facing. So you might want to highlight that more specifically, because how it's reading here is that you might decide to do burn, and implementing burning takes technical skills and more resources. So it's kind of challenging from an individual landowner perspective, but it's not enough to just then. It's just not.
Yeah.
From that bootleg picture, you can see the effects.
Sure, yeah, no, we do, so on this page, there's a kind of, if you scroll down a bit, there's a like, how to decide, how to choose right there. And so there's some, one of these is about how much material have you got, and if you've got too much, then like wap and scatter is not a good.
Great, yeah, just highlighting.
Yeah.
So as I'm reading.
But yeah, I think that could be more at the forefront. I appreciate that. Thank you, Tamara. Robert, I see you got your hand up.
Is timber harvesting considered in this portfolio or part of any recommendations within this guide as a whole?
That's our expectation for version 2.0. We kind of ran out, but if you have like recommended resources that could be outsourced to, definitely would take that. That's definitely on our docket for an important resource.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Great. All right. And then I'll just cover one more really quickly on the more ecological side, and then we can finish up the presentation and do some Q&A, because really appreciate you all giving your input. This has been a lot of sitting in a back room, just trying to put it all together. So it's nice to get people's feedback. All right, let's do. What were we gonna do?
Habitat features. It's
Habitat.
under all, yeah, so this is just an example of,
Why am I not seeing? Oh, there it is. Sorry, second one. Yep, got it.
yeah. Yeah, so and we raise this in, the website raises this point in the planning section also. So that people are minimizing their work and accomplishing multiple objectives at the same time by thinking from the front end about not just what they want to take out, but what features they want to either leave in or maintain. So if you scroll down a little bit. Yeah, so there's a listing here of types of habitat features, and we borrowed really heavily from this awesome booklet from the Pacific Northwest that that picture up above was from, but snags, logs, legacy trees, et cetera, what they are. Sorry, I'm talking, Eric, you talk, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, so what they are and how you might implement them, or sizing, oh, if you want to do a patch of trees, how might you actually enact that so that you can offer habitat for, some of our favorite megafauna or just fauna in general, like quails or deer, other things like that, without it becoming a fire risk, and having that heterogeneity throughout the land. So yeah, it's a lot about offering that. And for specifically like habitat brush piles, we have our own practice that we created for that, because it's a little bit more important where you're placing those and how you're using them. So went in more depth with that individually. And yeah, that's about it for these that I want to share right now, since we got only 9 minutes left. I'd love to dive into like a Q&A and any questions.
Can we just go back to the slideshow
Okay.
just for the last slide?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It just summarizes what we're the shortcomings that we know we have that, we didn't go to the about page, but just want to emphasize that we had 2 really large convenings with a lot of people, a bunch of you at them. So this is very much a joint effort. A lot of expertise from a huge number of people went into it. So as Eric was saying, this is version 1.0. Oh, now we're at the about page.
Sorry, I just wanted to show really quick. A lot of you are on this
Very
list.
long list.
Lovely, really appreciate
And
it.
most of the funding from the Veg Management Grant Program, so very grateful for that, and a lot of people out there are very grateful for that too. So we're looking for photos, I think we covered that, from Sonoma County plant communities, befores and afters. Kind of related to that, these are topics that we, you know, just kind of ran out, we want to cover these. Timber harvest somehow is not on this list, but it should be on this list. Next slide. We want you to share this resource through your various channels. We'll be bugging you all about how to do that and when to do it. We are offering in-person events with this website, introducing the website and combining it with this a sidewalk. So that people can really connect these principles with what's really planned. We need more funding to do all this. And I say we, but it's a team. And then we're looking for errors and omissions on the website. One thing that I really wanted to have on this website that we really failed to find was some kind of rough guidance for people about what healthy spacing is in our various plant communities, even if it's just an example. People don't know what their target is, and we can show photos. That's one of the reasons we really want more photos. I can't believe there's no scholarship on this. It's kind of amazing. So if you know of any.
Yeah, Robert, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's because it depends, Caitlin. It's hard to make generalizations about these things, and you really begin to border into the practice of forestry at that point when you start making recommendations about the treatment of forest cover. You've heard me say that, so I know this isn't news to you.
Yes, and this is.
I'm just letting you know.
There just aren't enough foresters, so even giving like wide ranges.
That's not an excuse, you know, that there's not enough of us, right? If there wasn't enough engineers, we wouldn't be, you know, doing engineering calculations, right? So it's the law for a reason. So I'm just gonna put that out there.
Robert, just tell us the answer.
It depends. It depends.
10 to 20, come on.
Nope.
So one other aspect of this is feedback is huge, right? We've been amassing all this knowledge into one place, and it is, as everyone's heard, a big lift. So your eyes on it and your feedback is incredibly important. We've tried to, you know, integrate everyone's that we've had so far at these other convenings, interviews, etc. But it's an ongoing process. So
I bet a lot of you have written up stories of projects that you've done or that your groups have done, that you already have them canned, like as a blog post or an e-blast. Send them to us. We can use them as a case study. People, those stories are super helpful. This is our team. Others just have contributed massively. You see Cooperative Extension, CAL FIRE, Ag and Open Space. It's been great. So any thoughts? Any feedback?
I thought about that last, you know, what Robert was saying about you'll need to work with a forester. I think it's interesting, Eric, I feel like we already talked about this last time we met, but it's, I think if it's not already in there's space maybe to build in a section on like, here's what we want you to know, and then here's what you really need to consult a professional about. Yeah. Like, here's when to bring in a professional. Here are the things that you're just not gonna probably know until you learn it about your property, at your specific place, and that's why you need to call a specific professional to help you get the rest of the way there.
Thank
All
you.
right, I'm gonna stop my share.
Can I
Yeah.
piggyback off of that from
Sure,
Adriana?
go for it, Molly.
I think another bullet that I would put into that list that Adriana is ideating on is around CEQA.
What about CEQA?
Just what to know if there's any sort of notice of it, anything that they need to know about it, like, or if there's any sort of like sensitive habitat that's on the land that they need to be aware of. Just high level stuff, of course, but
well, it'd be great if you could look at the permitting page and see what you think of it. That'd be great to get your feedback on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think one of the things we've learned is that, especially going through the grant proposals, is there's a wide gap between a landowner's understanding of what environmental compliance might mean, especially when it comes to the use of public funding. And so to try to capture that in this type of exercise, I think we fall a little short. But the graphic that Robert helped develop as far as permitting and understanding a little bit about how this, what kind of context it falls into, that was mainly the objective. I think the other part of that, I have another point that I'm probably gonna forget, but yeah, I'll just stop at that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Also, thanks for everything in the chat. It's super helpful to see written down so we can take action on it.
Hey, Eric,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry.
Yeah, let's go,
I
Brooke,
might
and
have-
then we'll.
Sorry, guys, I might have missed this, but how best should we provide any feedback after reviewing the webpage?
Yes.
You just
I
send
thought
us an
we
email. Yeah, whatever's easy. Send us an email, send us a link. Be great.
Okay.
Yeah, just say on this page, this yada yada, this bit of information. And I'll try the best that I can because some things are in multiple spots to integrate in its main spot. And then if there's any references, follow those as well.
I do remember the thing that I was thinking is that during our workshops, during our application process, oftentimes you get to landowners who are paralyzed with what they don't know and what they could do on their forest. And part of it is getting the right technical assistance to absolutely to Robert's point. Another part is becoming more familiar with what your forest has to offer, what your goals are for that land, and to start somewhere. Even if it's just limbing up your trees to in order to break up some of the fuel ladders. There are incremental steps, and doing something is the point. And that was why this document, this process was starting to create, is to provide some landowners with some guidance on how they can start and not think that they're paralyzed by it's so much to take on, I don't know where to begin. So this is kind of the essence of why this was created.
Definitely. And I'll add, I see this as a positive for RPFs, right? It sends people in their direction. We reference habitually that that's the law, that this is really informational to get people to feel confident enough to speak to an RPF and move that process and actually care for their land forward. So yeah, I think that they synergize well, to be honest.
I'm wondering, I haven't looked at things yet. Do you have a section on what to expect in terms of the unexpected? Sort of that idea of you have a plan, you have a vision, you decide to remove all the poison oak, and all of a sudden all the deer brush goes away and all of the coffee berry goes away because the deer are that used to get their antlers tangled in the poison oak that you've cleared away. And now you were managing for quail, and now you've lost the quail because all the brush is gone. And that's normal. And that's not something that is not a defeat. It just means that you didn't anticipate. And it goes back to your adaptive management question. There are going to be surprises in the process. I mean, I don't know if that's something you guys mentioned, but I think it's a good point.
Yeah, yeah, great. I think Caitlin's taking notes here, so please note that. But I think that's definitely a point to bring up, and we definitely went around that as like, okay, do a little bit and see what happens and come back around with the adaptive management. But I think it's good to point out there will be uncertainties, and something that we definitely spoke to and has been in our mind from offset is you're going to make mistakes, but let's try not to make anything that we regret entirely. It's more about learning. So yeah, we'll make sure we note that. All right, great. We're kind of
not a fire or fuel management technique we would recommend.
So
Well,
we're kind of
really
out of time
it.
here. I don't want to take up too much, so we'll pass it back.
I was just going to transition off, and I want to just thank you for taking the time to be able to share your time, and to Caitlin for the great work you guys have shown to be able to guide us through this process. It's very complex, and it's a great tool. We're really excited to launch it.
Great, awesome. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks. All right, with that, I'd like to transition over to Connor and Josh to for their presentation and take it to it. Do you need a PowerPoint, or are we gonna go?
We're looking to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Let's have a conversation.
I guess I'll kick us off. My name is Josh Cox again. I know we went around and did introductions, but I think probably the best way to orient our work is by talking about how this company came to be and some of our values. I'm sure everyone remembers Hurricane Katrina in August of 2006. And after that storm, there was a whole mass of folks who were largely undocumented who came and rebuilt New Orleans. While folks were doing that really important work, they were subject to a ton of wage theft, a lot of predatory management by disaster staffing companies and disaster restoration companies. They were subject to unsafe working conditions. Folks were living in city park without like bathrooms or potable water. And so a nonprofit started called Resilience Force that advocated on behalf of those workers during that disaster time. Since Katrina, there have been no shortage of billion-dollar hurricanes all across the Gulf South. And those very same workers go from storm to storm, whether it be in Texas or Alabama or Louisiana, doing the exact same thing that they did after Katrina. And they're facing the exact same challenges that they faced then: wage theft, predatory disaster restoration companies, unsafe working conditions, and just a general lack of dignity and respect in the valuable service that they're providing and helping a community rebuild. And so Resilience Force followed workers for about a decade at each of these hurricane events, making sure that companies who weren't doing the right thing were held to account. And sometimes that even involved suing, major disaster restoration companies that you've heard of, like Servpro or Belfor. But oftentimes it even includes doing the small things, such as making sure workers have water. And so this has continued up until this very day. Resilience Force, when there's a hurricane that is scheduled to make landfall and looks like it's going to be big enough, starts to mobilize hurricane operations to make sure that our network in the Gulf of about 2,500 workers has some sense of coordination. But eventually, I think, the founder started to realize, hey, we're spending all this time fighting all these companies that are doing the wrong thing. What does it actually look like if we just started a company and did the right thing? What if you could actually start a company that had the right values, that was able to just cut out all of the companies that are doing the wrong thing? And so I ended up connecting with that guy after COVID-19. I don't know if you guys remember this, but COVID-19 was happening it was starting to spread like in the end of 2019, and Mardi Gras in New Orleans was in February of 2020. At this time, I was working in city government, and the Trump administration didn't really tell us, hey, this is a really big thing that you need to account for, and you should shut down Mardi Gras. So, Mardi Gras being this like community huge party, it ended up being a super spreader event. And so we were one of the epicenters of COVID in the beginning. And part of getting that virus under control meant that we needed to shut down the hospitality industry, which is a huge part of the economy. But it created a couple of interesting challenges. First is that like the majority of folks who work in the hospitality industry are Black and brown. And second, COVID-19 is actually hitting Black and brown communities in New Orleans the hardest. And it was a particular challenge to try to reach those communities for to deliver information or resources around community health to actually help stop the spread. There's understandable lack of trust with the medical community or even with government. And so Resilience Force and me at the time, while I was in city government, partnered to actually pivot those hospitality folks into community health workers. And so that's how I personally got connected with Resilience Force, excuse me. So it ended up being great, you know, happened for 3 years, COVID goes away. But we still have the challenge of figuring out, hey, hurricanes and natural disasters, climate change is going to continue to happen. How do we make sure that we are being a part of the solution while also building the workforce that we need to address it in a dignified way? And so that's where Resilience Works comes from. So Resilience Works is a for-profit company that's wholly owned by Resilience Force, the nonprofit. And our goal is to build the climate workforce of the future that we need to address climate change in America. And so we have two principal lines of business. The first is now in the Gulf South. So we deliver workers to disaster restoration companies after storms. We have a couple of high road agreements with disaster restoration companies. And so we are the good actor that we wish we were dealing with 10 years ago. But the second is this amazing work that brings me here that Connor and I and North Bay Jobs and Justice, we've been working on since July of 2022. So with that, maybe I'll just throw the ball to you to sort of give folks a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I'll give a little bit of background on North Bay Jobs and Justice. You'll probably notice a few parallels to the story that you just heard. So Jobs and Justice, North Bay Jobs and Justice in particular, has been around for 10 years and has been a community and grassroots labor coalition for most of that time. And then similarly in 2020, how many people had to evacuate during the LNU fire? I did. I lived in Forestville at the time. I was literally just over the evacuation. I'm sure you did as well. And between that, Kincaid, Tubbs, I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, have had the experience of evacuating during wildfires. And we recognized during this time that as disruptive as that is, you know, we actually had the privilege of getting to seek safety while at the same time, farm workers here in Sonoma County were like running towards the flames, being brought into evacuation zones that would actually be illegal for any of us to go into in order to harvest wine grapes. And similarly to the way that COVID was disproportionately impacting people of color, low-income immigrant workers, that's the case here with climate change as well. And so North Bay Jobs and Justice made sort of a strategic pivot in 2020 to laser focus in on immigrant and Indigenous farm workers in Sonoma County. We still do other like grassroots labor coalition work. That's our primary focus. And we learned a lot of things in doing direct worker organizing with these folks. One is that people are really struggling. People are having a hard time paying rent. They're having a hard time getting food on the table. All manner of obstacles to deal with, wages being what they are, and also seasonality of work. It's very hard on the body. You know, in those extreme smoke events, people are still out there working in the vineyards. It has a big physical toll. So that's one thing we learned. We also learned that by the nature of the work, all farm workers have a lot of experience working the land here in Sonoma County with their hands. But the overwhelming majority come from family traditions of tending land, both here in the US and in their homelands, primarily in Mexico, but other parts of Central and Latin America as well. And then actually a really large percentage of those folks come from intact nature-based indigenous communities in places like the states of Oaxaca and Michoacan in Mexico, and are carrying long intergenerational traditions of traditional ecological knowledge of how to be in right relationship with land. So we learned that as well. And then in the face of these like catastrophic fires and the other manifestations of an unraveling climatic dynamic, right? We have these periods of droughts and flooding as well. Kind of coming around to the outsized need for climate resilience work that there is, not just in Sonoma County, but specifically in Sonoma County. You know, Eric was talking about the like overcrowding of forests. Like I know everyone in this room and on the Zoom is more than familiar with that. So in conversations with workers, as we're supporting them in organizing with one another to improve their conditions working within the agricultural sector, we started to wonder as a collective, like, is there something else we can do that might address these different phenomena, these different issues all at once? Like, is there a way that we could actually create the climate resilience work that provides people dignified careers that protect our communities and heal the land and offer family sustaining wages of at least $35 an hour, which is consistent with MIT's living wage calculator for Sonoma County. And so for the past, 2.5 years, we've been running this experiment of like, is this a real thing that can happen? Is this something that we can make and find a way to support our collective goals as a community that cares about humans, our infrastructure, but also all of the other beings that live here and make this such a special place, the forest and everything that encompasses it. And so we started out, North Bay Jobs with Justice, the bulk of our staff, we're a small team, most of us come from like community organizing or union organizing. So in good organizing fashion, we said, okay, we're not land tenders. Who do we have critical connections with? Who can we be in relationship with to start getting this off the ground? So we started working with Occidental Arts and Ecology Center and treated 41 acres out there, living and thinning, and then using the biomass on site for like in the slide of what to do with woody material, like gully stepping and other like laying logs on contour, erosion control, things like that. And similar, like no one had, the operative phrase being formal, big air quotes, no one had like formal training in this work from the farm workers we were working with, but as Brock at OAC would tell you, people brought lots and lots of knowledge and skill to that work. And so this was sort of our first pilot program that gave us the sense that actually this is something we can do. How do we create something that could be self-sufficient and be a home for not just this initial cohort of farm workers who are transitioning to being climate resilience workers, but an option for folks who work in the agricultural sector to either have seasonal work when sufficient work is not available to them, or to fully transition out of that sector into something else. And so that's how we initially plugged in with Resilience Works, because just like, our director and some of our other organizing staff don't have a background in land management, we're also not business. And then, I can talk about like trainings and work projects.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's anything you wanted to say about the partnership.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I kind of want to paint the picture for folks of what the partnership is, because people often like look at us a little sideways, like not really understanding. So I think the way I would describe it is that, clearly North Bay Jobs with Justice has a deep and abiding and like regular connection with workers. And what we do at Resilience Works is we provide this like fluid opportunity to go from organizing to actual like paying work on the ground. And so, if you think about North Bay Jobs with Justice over here and Resilience Works over here, North Bay Jobs with Justice has these connections with workers deeply, but our partnership actually allows workers to fluidly go from organizing one day to actually being on a work site the next, and then to go back to organizing the day after that. And so, I think that's one of the reasons why what we're doing together is so powerful, is that it's completely unsiloed, and it's beyond being unsiloed, it's so grounded in values. And I think that's really why it works as well as it does. And so, after the pilots that Connor mentioned, we, were able to secure several large grants that have allowed us to really deepen our training regime and come up with what I would describe as like a pretty solid curriculum for, ensuring that that workers are essentially able to handle almost any vegetation management like tasks that comes their way. And so I don't know, I remember you saying you made a list of all the things if you wanted to talk about it, but.
Sure, yeah. We've had part of a focus on National Wildfire Coordinating Group certification classes. So we had the first, to our knowledge, the first all Spanish language FFT2, like basic wildland firefighter and firelighter training back in December of 2022 that we put about 20 workers through. We've we're running 2 cohorts right now. We had our initial group of around 20 workers. We've got a second of a similar number that have done like S212 wildland chainsaws through our grant funding this year through workforce development grants through CAL FIRE and California EDD. We'll be putting people through a few more of those NWCG classes. We've been getting people experience on live fire opportunities with partners like Fire Forward and Tribal Eco Restoration Alliance, Watershed Research and Training Center. We're sending people to Trex events. We got to burn with Pepperwood. We did a shaded fuel break project in burn piles with Land Paths. We got to work with Sonoma Land Trust just a couple weeks ago for the first time. It was a beautiful day. But we're also trying to build skills across different areas of vegetation management besides just prescribed fire and focusing in on defensible space work with partners like Sonoma Ecology Center and Fire Safe Sonoma. We have Fire Safe Sonoma received a grant from the California Fire Safe Council that's going to have us treating 100 homes in disadvantaged communities this year for that 0 to 30 foot defensible safe zones. We've been trying to incorporate as much ecological focus into the way that we're training people to do this work, which really gels well with the life experiences that workers are already bringing to this. We have had both cohorts go through a 6-week fire adapted landscaping cert course at the SRJC. We're doing a window removal with Russian River Keeper. And as I was saying to Josh this morning, I don't have a lot of positive things to say about Arindo Donax, but it is great job security for the workers. We're gonna be sending people out with Marshall Turbeville's crew to just get people as much time behind the chainsaw as possible. Similarly, up in the Upper Northwest at Monan's Rill, doing some forest stand improvement work in the burn scar. So we're trying to take a pretty broad tack at this point and figure out, like, you know, everyone talks about there are so many, you know, there's a need for workforce. And everyone, you know, in this meeting is working towards collective goals, but kind of from distinct perspectives. And so one of the things that I'm really curious to know from all of you is, you know, where do you see workforce gaps? Based on the, you know, rapid fire list of the types of trainings we've been doing so far, what are things that you wish there were a workforce of hand crew equipped to do? And yeah.
Native plant ID.
Yeah, I would love to have some more training, and especially on native plant ID and also management, right? Like a lot of folks come from landscaping backgrounds as well, and you know, great to have like transferable skills of like doing native plant ID out in the forest when you're doing thinning and things like that, but also if people are doing landscaping work, knowing like, how do I care for a ceanothus that's in somebody's front yard? So thank you for that.
Yeah, these aren't people that you want Brooke to hire, right? You want to keep them in resilience works, or, I mean, what's your goal for folks, like hiring the crew through resilience works to come on to projects? Are you bidding out projects right now? Just curious how it applies to the workforce piece.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the answer to that is, I think whatever the worker wants to do, right? I mean, you know, we consider it a win if you know, a worker decides to stay with us and do vegetation management, whether they decide to go do, you know, forestry, or whether they decide to, you know, maybe go actually fight fires with CAL FIRE and work more formal. So, you know, I think to the extent that we are just an opportunity for folks to pivot into land management in a different way, I think we consider that a win. Yeah, we are actively, you know, trying to get more business. I mean, I think for us, the long-term goal is to figure out, okay, how do we create full-time employment opportunities for the folks who are in our 2 cohorts. And so that's 40 people. And to be fair, not everybody will necessarily want to go full-time with us. But that also requires, you know, figuring out how to have a steady workflow that manages the seasonal components, et cetera. And so it's got to be a diverse array of projects to make it all pencil, to make it all make sense. So, you know, I think the answer is like, yeah, yes, we're looking for anything that makes sense. And we also want to do what makes sense for each individual worker.
And we have been bidding out on contracts, like we did that, the shaded fuel break out at Ocean Song with Land Pass, that was just contracted work. So we're still doing a mix of training and work projects, but we see those work projects as being sort of the critical piece to being able to offer people full-time employment. And the long vision is similarly, like, we're trying to be really responsive to what we see the needs of the workers and like the climate resilience or forest sectors to be. But, ideally, we'd be able to offer not just to the current 40 people in the cohort, but to, there are 11,000 farm workers. And, frankly, what we know with both the climate crisis and the way that trends in the industry are looking like, the future for that many people in the wine industry is very far from guaranteed. And so we want to be able to scale to a point where either Resilience Works could be a home for a large number of formerly farm workers turned climate resilience workers, or be, a place that is that for some people, and also a really important incubator to get people skilled up to move into being hired by right, or by any of these other, in-sector players.
Congratulations.
We've got a comment, go ahead, do you want to finish out?
I was just gonna say congratulations on almost getting nearly $1 million awarded by CAL FIRE. And
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is great. Amanda?
I find that there's a real dearth of knowledge around like water management, especially around roads, and just ditches. We're constantly dealing with erosion issues with hand crews. So yeah, even just the use and where wattles would be appropriate, but really water management in general.
I love that. My background most recently has been in like permaculture with water covered regeneration focus. So like what we were able to do out at OAC with Brock is like my heart. I want to be regenerating watersheds in whatever way. So that's something that I'm holding as an intention. Like we've started with a big focus on fire because there's a lot of energy around it, there's a lot of funding around it, but there's a potential that we could have sort of like divisions based on what people are interested in. Like, is there a version of this where a couple of years down the line, we have people who are doing mostly roadside veg management, we have people who are like on the burn crews, we have people who are doing grazing, and also like, with that said, also trying to apply like a holistic lens at every turn, right? So that we're not just doing thinning, but we're thinking through like, what is the best and highest use of this biomass on this project? Thinking about what's best for the site, but also like emissions and logistics and trying to hold it all.
I was just thinking how great and sort of ironic it would be if the for-profit Resilience Works is the straw that breaks the camel's back that helps nonprofits pay a living wage in Sonoma County and the region. I just think it's amazing that you're paying people what you're paying them, and it's just amazing how, most nonprofits, and I think maybe even the RTDs, I'm not sure, they're just, people are losing money working at these jobs, and so the idea of actually a wage that helps people build some financial security is, I just want us all to take note of that and do it too.
Thanks, Beck.
We're trying, it's really hard.
I think there's, it'd be interesting to understand how Resilience Works maintains quality control. So when you talk about resilient treating or wildfire fuels treatments, you should be working with someone who's very knowledgeable and can work on the ground. For all the projects that are under our management, we require some type of forestry expertise. Usually a forester is writing the prescriptions, and then there's a crew that's able to carry out the prescriptions under their leadership. So what does Resilience Force offer when it comes to that level of quality control?
Yeah, it's a great question. So up until this point, the majority of the projects that we've done have actually had the client has either provided that leadership or had the paid for the consultant to provide that leadership to cover. But now that we're in a spot, you know, where we see ourselves as being primed for growth, we just opened an office yesterday.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks.
Wow.
You know, I think one of our next hire, one of our biggest priorities is gonna be, you know, getting a person who's got that level of expertise so that we can start to make sure that, number one, you know, it's gonna help just in terms of like the on the ground day-to-day management, but number two, making sure that we've got the quality needed so that folks are getting, you know, the service level that they deserve.
All right. Okay. Thanks. Go ahead, Steve.
A couple points, and I hope these don't, well, I'll just say my piece and you could ignore it if you, one of the things I found is when I run I run bilingual landscape trainings here, mostly oriented toward the home landscape, because that's who does an awful lot of the work in Marin and Sonoma counties. And I've found that teaching, I noticed you taught all in Spanish, and I've tried that, and it has not been as successful as bilingual things. And so I'm just throwing this out there because a lot of the guys that do show up at these things are people who sort of by definition value education, because that's why they're going to anything that resembles a school. And so what I'm seeing is that they already are sort of working hard on getting some English skills. And the most important thing there for them has been, and has been hearing the terms in both Spanish and English, so that they can more readily make these transitions. So I just wanted to put a plug in for really focus, and I'm sure it probably happens anyway, but really focusing on the bilingual education, because a lot of these landscape issues, while we're communicating information, it's equally as much simply a language class, because when you take English, you don't learn the difference between, say, well, this is going to be a very landscape focused example, and I apologize for that, but the difference between turf, sod, and grass in English is kind of subtle. And that makes every bit of difference when a guy's trying to understand what their clients are telling them in the landscape, when they're trying to communicate back either to crews they run or directly to the landscaper themselves, to the homeowner themselves. And then there was one other thing, but of course it's completely escaped me right now. So I'll just shut up and move on. Thanks.
Any response to that, Connor or Josh?
Sure. I mean, well, the first thing I'd say is like, what's important to us is meeting people where they're at. And if we only offered bilingual training, we could work with probably 2 or 3 people out of our group of 40. And that seems like such a missed opportunity to offer people the skill sets and the living wage. And what I find is that, like, you know, everyone who is on our crew is someone who has demonstrated leadership in the organizing side at this point, because we're trying to grow a base of leadership so that as we scale out, we can be having internal trainings that are culturally relevant and come from a place of trust within the immigrant and specifically farm worker community. Also worth mentioning that, you know, a lot of the folks we work with speak Spanish as their second language, and they're actually raised speaking Indigenous languages. So like, to us, it's a big justice component to be able to offer that. And that was actually one of the biggest demands that was fought for and won on the farm worker advocacy side, was language justice, having things like safety trainings and evacuation notices, things like that being offered in people's sort of like mother tongue. You know, there are some worker leaders we work with who, in the Tubbs fire in particular, when we were all kind of caught on our heels, like had no idea how to respond to evacuation notices because they initially weren't communicated out in Spanish. You know, no one was ready for it at that time. So I hear that. I think it's a good point. I think that all of the folks we work with, one of the things they're most excited about is the learning component. And people do the organizing on their own time. None of that is paid work. So there's already like a very high degree of initiative being shown. And kind of the beauty of working with such a like partnership focused model that we do is like, we try to prioritize having bilingual instructors who can deliver a training in Spanish, but that's not always available at the time. So like we had Eric out with also Robert from Sonoma Ecology Center to do a training a couple weeks ago. And we're facilitating both in English and in Spanish. And the beauty of that is like, yeah, like the cultural exchange of it is really important in and of itself, but like you do end up learning some terminology in English, and then folks who are like making ends meet with cobbling together all different lines of work, people who are working in landscaping. A lot of them are kind of encountering a lot of this, like I'm learning terminology that is communicable in English, right? Like, you know, I don't know the Spanish term for like cenotes, right? Like certain things are just like being communicated. Some of the chainsaw terminology is just like by default shared in English. So it's an interesting point. I'll hold that in mind, but it is an important piece to us to adopt things fully in Spanish.
Robert entered a comment that I share, is like there seems to be a demand for machine operators. And I'm wondering if that's something in the future, getting that type of technical experience.
Yeah, it's not something we dipped into yet, but I could definitely see it. A lot of the folks who are coming from the vineyards are, you know, tractor operators or mechanics in that field. And so I think there's a lot of transferable skills. Yeah, we're building the road while we're walking.
We don't want any more roads built. We're building the shitty fuel break as we're.
There we go.
It's like the burden, yeah. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, thank you guys. That was really helpful for us to have that discussion, and I think it's ongoing. I think the purpose of what the Sonoma County Forest Conservation Working Group does is try to bring in relevant topics so we can really clearly understand from all kinds of lenses how to approach moving our Sonoma County forests into a healthier status. And that means all the users, all the people who are influenced by healthy forests. So we really appreciate you guys spending some time with us, and hope it's not the last time. And you guys are always welcome to chime in, and you can actually, there's a guy online that's actually coming from British Columbia. Whoa. Being able to attend this event. And you could do it for New Orleans. They have internet in New Orleans, don't they? All right there.
Thank you.
I'm throwing Eric under the bus. He's presenting from British Columbia, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm at Simon Fraser University. I'll say it's quite pretty to look out at the mountains.
Yeah, very cool.
I have a question actually before you go. What are you guys gonna do with the CAL FIRE grant? What's your scope of work for that? Workforce development grant?
Yeah, so the thinking was to do, I mean, our goal is to basically kind of create like an apprenticeship program, right? And so we have a slate of trainings that, you know, we're doing with various partners, you know, many of which, you know, Caitlin, SCC, and Tara, and Fire Forward. And so it's to, you know, train workers to do that, but then also to do real work, real projects in the real world, also with some of our partners. And so, I mean, I think that's basically there are two sides to the house, right? And so it's delivering on both sides.
Right, yeah, we just feel like there's this kind of gap in the way that historically we've seen workforce development approach that's like just training and then good luck. And we feel like not only do we want to be able to offer people compensation for their time, but also like really the way you learn this stuff is you don't learn to be a good chainsaw operator by taking S212. You get on the job experience. So we try to bake as much of that into our scope as possible. And it's also helping us like get the crew out with PPE and tools so that we can continue to do that work.
And the last thing I'll say is that, like, you know, I think we think about this as like a pact that we make with workers. So like when a worker decides, hey, I'm gonna spend my time with y'all doing trainings, you know, it's important to us that they're getting value out of it, right? And so like part of that value is also like, does this lead to real economic opportunity, not just in the moment while I'm doing the training or doing on the job training, but after that. And so, you know, that's a part of our thinking that like we're in commitment with with the workers as well. And so that kind of shapes how we think about this, like financially, and also the model.
Mhm. Yeah, it's such an interesting business model that you're talking about, because it's like, yeah, you're building it from the ground up. I mean, from the workers themselves, now you're looking for supervisors potentially and direct, people with licenses who can direct their work too. What do you feel like is I mean, I know you're building the shade feel break while you walk it, but like, what's sort of like the mid goal and then like longer term goal? Do you have a vision for what that could look like?
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about it a little bit, but.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean, I think it comes down to math, right? I mean, businesses survive on revenue. And so, and for us, oftentimes so much of the revenue actually goes to a particular owner, right? But for us, we're thinking about it less as like, we need to generate enough profit for an individual. It's like, how do we actually generate enough revenue so that we can reinvest it, right? I mean, the ultimate owner of Resilience Works is another nonprofit. So, our goal is just to get, the next goal is like, how do we get to 5 million in revenue, right? So that we can, I mean, I can probably support 15 workers on a full-time basis. Then after that, just how do you grow in a way that's sustainable? Because, we're not trying to sell this business, right? The goal is to do this, right? And to get large enough that we have an open tent for whoever wants to do it.
Maybe related to that is, what would be specific barriers that frustrate you, or things that are kind of slow to launch?
Yeah, I mean, I think like one of them that we're trying to address is the licensing component.
Yeah, right.
I think that there are definitely like jobs that we would have been, perfect for that I don't think we could have necessarily pursued because of the licensing component. So that's a huge part of the HR strategy. And then there are other like more business related issues, right? Like a line of credit, right? I mean, it's not easy holding paper for 45 days to get reimbursed from CAL FIRE, or counties, they take like 45, 60 days for reimbursement. So there's just some standard business challenges.
Yeah, right.
And then also too, I think I would say that we've got lots of partners in the nonprofit community who have been amazing. And I think, we're at a spot where folks are now starting to write new grants. And so like, I wouldn't call it a challenge just as much as a fingers crossed opportunity that works. Like, I hope that folks will consider writing us into grants, at the actual cost, which for us is basically $100 an hour per worker. Because that would then allow us to, start to have the revenue footing to then be able to plan expansions, or to be able to plan, maybe we want to focus on, more heavy tree falling work, right? So I hope that's kind of like helpful in something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just two things I would add on to that is, for a long time, in order to pay people a living wage, to Caitlin's point, like, we're a nonprofit and a business owned by a nonprofit, we've been subsidizing it, right? Like North Bay Jobs and Justice using philanthropic grants, us having these public grants in order to be able to do that, is not the long-term vision, right? So we're kind of coming up against, to Caitlin's point, this sort of historical undervaluing of manual labor, and the not being recognized as skilled labor, and also all of the tendrils of racism that are intertwined just with land work here in this country. And so we're trying to also change the culture a little bit around the story of what does it mean to be a climate resilience worker? Who are the people who are doing that? What are the skills and knowledge they're bringing? And hopefully to break the camel's back, as you said, to change that perception for everyone, not just the people who are on our crews.
Poor camel.
That's one piece. That's one piece. Yeah, me and DeVane too. So that's one piece that it's going well, right? We're getting CAL FIRE understands it and is approving these budgets, for example, and partners are excited about working with us in that project. But it's something that is much bigger than just our iteration of this work. So that's one piece, and then the other is, as I said, you don't get you don't become a really gifted chainsaw operator by taking a course, you get hours and hours and hours. And so one thing that would be great for those of us who work at organizations that manage land, like if there are opportunities where we can help you with your land management goals by having our crews out practicing falling trees, things like that, that could be really helpful to us. And we may even have grant funding that can support it, you know. When we did burn that with Pepperwood and with Sonoma Land Trust just a few weeks ago, we were able to support that with the grant funding that we have. So we were burning at Pepperwood, and the only cost of Pepperwood was their own staff time. And so we're interested in that kind of arrangement in service of like getting our people trained up so that we can do things to meet the quality control and keep people as safe as possible.
I'm demonstrating our value.
That's it.
All right, too. How about that liability question, and insurance? How do you guys come to the table with that?
We have it.
Yeah.
So resilience works as, you know, workers' comp, general liability, all those things.
Fantastic.
So you've been doing like trainings, kind of like one-off trainings with several partners, but in this new CAL FIRE grant, there's apprenticeships, right? So is that like a longer term relationship with a training entity? Or is that more of like still the workshop model where it's like, we're gonna go?
We call it an apprenticeship. That's how we're thinking about it. I mean, I think formally it's not called that, but like that's how we're piecing it together in our minds.
Right, I think of it as like a curriculum, right? And so it's just, yeah, we're doing additional iterations with the partners we've built relationships with. And I think we've done a pretty good job refining it, but we're also thinking about like what more do we want to train on? Yeah.
Okay, so you're looking for people who might want to take a couple staff under their wing for a season, maybe. Would that be a thing or?
Sure, let's talk about it.
I don't have that to offer. I'm just wondering what it is that would help, so.
Yeah. We're super open to like thinking through anything, like ideas are very welcome, so.
Right, I mean, from the jobs of justice perspective, and I think it's pretty shared, like, we want the workers to thrive. We want to see the land heal, so like, as long as we're coming from a place together, like that's the mutual goal, like, we're very antagonists, yeah.
In 2021, I helped develop this technical advisory committee, and there was one individual who's on the committee who says, you know, Kim, we got to resolve it all. We can't just focus on, you know, veg treatments. We have to think about housing and employment and workforce development. And it's absolutely true. It was just, I was like a couple months on my new job, and I was like, Caitlin, I will get there. We will get there. Throwing you under the bus. But in the sense, this is, you know, the reality, one of the things I just kind of wanted to throw out there is like, we are constantly chasing the dollar through grants and unsustainable sources of funding. And one of the things that Molly's going to do for us is resolve all the sustainable long-term funding, right? Molly, come on now, work with me. So the county is trying to think about that from the perspective of economics matters, and we have to get to a point where workforce development is equally as important to wildfire resilience, is equally supported to by communities who can live together in some type of harmonious fashion. So my point, I'm going to channel my inner Ben Nichols about like trying to move towards a sustainable forestry direction, thanks to Tamara, who are thinking about how to process that biomass. How do we turn this into less of a subsidy through grants and more of an economic model that really makes sense, that moves us towards a healthier forest where people have good paying jobs, but it's a steep learning curve. And so I really appreciate the fact that you are here and being able to share that perspective of how we can get employees that can be really moving in the right direction. I hope we could continue this conversation in ways in which we can try to resolve some of these issues. And I think, you know, Dee's advocating for, you know, 4 counties trying to work on these things, trying to look at it from an economic perspective, and the private sector, what role do they play? I think that's a really important factor to pull into this. So, but with that, I'm going to transition to our last couple of items on our list. Thank you very much, Josh and Connor. And so just to bring up the agenda real quickly, And to wrap up here soon, we have the results of our Google survey, or actually, what did you want to share with that, Adriana?
Want to share, except just a reminder to fill out the survey if you haven't done so, and that we have a strategic plan kind of in the works, and it can use everyone's help, and
Right.
it'll be coming soon.
And I think that's important, that the Google survey helps us to kind of get feedback about how these meetings are working for everybody. And so we've talked about who our target audience are. We typically have a lot of different organizations and agencies. Our target audience has always wanted to be the landowners and the people who actually do the work on the ground. So we really want to get your feedback about how is the best way to do that. Shortening up our what do we call it? The updates in the beginning of the meeting was something that was suggested to us, like not spend so much time on the updates and be able to offer good presentations like we had today. And related to that, we have the public events calendar that we wanted to highlight a couple events. And if you have other events that you want to share with us, Rose is ready at the keyboard to take down any future events. I think Brooke threw out there earlier the May 23rd event, which is
Coast Ridge.
yeah, Coast Ridge is offering a what's the title of it?
Wildfire resilience planning.
Right,
Something along those lines.
Right, we got Marshall speaking, Jason Wells, I think Carleon Stafford's gonna be there. Coast Ridge Forest Council is going to be there. Brooke, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I
Are
just
you
wanted to
in
make sure people are aware of it, occurring out on the coast at Timber Cove, and Judy would like folks to just register so they have an idea of how many people are going to be showing up.
It is going to be on site in Timber Cove, no hybrid, and it's going to focus on all the activities that Coast Ridge Forest Council is doing in that area through the Sonoma Coast Collaborative. I'm excited to go. I'll be there. It's from 1 to 3, and then throw in some travel time to get up to Timber Cove. So any other events that people want to share? All right, then. I think we can, is there any other folks that have something they want to share today? Seeing none, we are officially a wrap. Thank you folks for showing up online, and thanks for those who joined us in the moon. So we encourage you to come and partake in this community effort. So when you can, we're gonna start having some more food items to be more enticing during the lunch hour. So you're also welcome to bring your own lunch next time. So all right, folks, thanks for coming.